why? How many of us have a big why? Who knows what a big why is, and how many of us have one? You need to review and remind yourself of your big why. You have to review and remind yourself of your big why because you need a reason to continue moving forward with all of the stuff that goes on with a salesperson and in their business. You know, one thing that's pretty bad is that we're all quote-unquote independent contractors. You know what an independent contractor really means to me? An independent contractor to me means that you have a license and the right to go to work all day and do nothing. And nobody's going to tell you anything different. Nobody's going to tell you that you doing nothing is not okay. The only person that's going to tell you that is what's going to come within you yourself. Now, if you work for Home Depot, if you work for Kmart, if you work for Lazy Dog, I don't care where you work, they're going to tell you what time to go, you're going to go. You might complain, but you're going to get your butt there on time if you want to check. If they tell you that you're going to work overtime, you're going to work it. If they tell you to clean floors, if they tell you whatever they tell you to do, you might complain, you might grovel, you might whatever you're going to do, but guess what you're going to do to keep that job and get that check? You're going to do it. Question. Why, as independent contractors and salespeople, why won't we do that for ourselves? You quote-unquote got in the business more than likely for some sort of freedom. Maybe it's free time. Maybe it's additional income. Maybe whatever the case may be, you got in this business to be your own business person for whatever reasons those are. Why would you not hold yourself to at least the same standard that someone would hold you to if they were paying you on a job? Quick question again, for all of us in the room, if you had to pay yourself for what you do, how many of you would pay your own self? If you wouldn't pay yourself for the job that you're doing right now, guess what? I mean, would you fire you? Just a thought. On the big why, in my opinion, your big why needs to be something that gets you up, that keeps you going when the things are rough. Now, I know that initially a lot of people say, well, my big why is money. I want to make more money. I have found in most cases, money is not the big why. In most cases, money is the byproduct of what you need to receive to achieve your big why. And there's a big difference. Because let me tell you, it's very easy when the escrow bombs, or you're making your calls, whatever it is, and you're not having success, you to just sit up in the morning and say, I'm getting up to go do it today because, I want to make $10,000. That doesn't necessarily continually get you up. But if your big why, as it was in our case when our children were younger, that I have a wife, I have 3 children that can't work, we have goals, we have things that we want to provide for them, and if I don't get up, there are other people that are dependent upon me. That was what my big why was. As you evolve, your big why may change. But you have to have a big why, something that is going to pull you through when those times are a little bit tougher. And we all have them. For those of you that see people on top producing panels or whatever they are, etc., you see people getting accolades at the office, everybody has the same thing. If you ever, it's funny, if you pay attention to even some of our posts and stuff on Facebook. I mean, my wife posted yesterday. How many of you guys had someone who actually was wiring their funds to escrow and then called their bank and pulled the funds? Cash buyer. How many of you guys would at that particular point went and had a drink and the day was over? See, we've been doing this long enough where I found out about that on Facebook like everybody else. But my wife didn't bother to call me about it. Why? Well, because of the buyer that we had that didn't sign their loan documents when we were on our way out of town to take our son back to school, And the loan documents were in escrow, and we thought that the deal was done, and that buyer walked out. Or the buyer that a lady was about to lose her home in foreclosure, that we had put her into this great deal on, and all of a sudden she waited, right before her contingency periods were to move, and to say she didn't want to do it anymore, and now all of a sudden we don't have a buyer, and we've got a homeowner facing foreclosure. This is in the midst of all of the stuff that we're already doing. What pulls you through that type of stuff? Your big why. If you don't have a big why, these things that are quote-unquote negative, they'll kick you down, because even when you're having successes, the negative things, as human nature, they pull you down. You're not thinking about the 2 or 3 escrows you closed already that month. You're not thinking about the other people that are happy, the other people that are satisfied with the things that you do. You're thinking about the negative things that have just happened to you, and that's human nature. So you got to have a big why. I would encourage you to take time and figure out what your big why is. Because your big why, it is exactly that. Your big why. It's nobody else's. It's not going to necessarily mean the same thing to someone else. It's going to mean what it means to you, and you have to have that fuel. You have to be the one to use that so that you can get up out of the bed in the morning and do the things you need to do, stay on track, lead generate, do all those things. Is there anybody here that thinks lead generation is fun, by the way? Well, good. Because let me tell you something. Lead generation is not fun. Does anybody here play an instrument? Anybody here ever play sports? Done any acting? Done anything? Doing anything of that nature? What do? You have to practice. I was a decent basketball player. Got me to college, a few other things. I know, but you don't have to say that. You don't know that. But I was decent. But let me tell you something. I love basketball. I hated practice. Didn't like nothing about practice. Like game time. Love game time. Hate practice. Guess what happens in the game if you don't practice? You don't play very well. At least not on a consistent basis. You might have a good game. You want to be consistent? Just a thought. Just a thought.